My name is Chelsea, and I am 32 years old. As the Deputy Director of Product Development at TechVision, I never imagined being fired in a glass conference room with 20 employees watching. Marcus, our VP, smugly declared, "This adverse action ensures you leave with nothing." The boardroom fell silent as his phone lit up with an automated wire alert. $9.4 million transferred to my account. His eye began twitching uncontrollably when he turned to our company lawyer and asked, "What does full acceleration mean?" Before I dive into this wild journey, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want more stories about corporate justice. Trust me, this one is worth sticking around for. I came from a middle-class family in Denver, Colorado. My parents worked hard to provide opportunities they never had. My father taught high school mathematics while my mother managed a local bank branch. They instilled in me the values of education, hard work, and integrity from an early age. These principles guided me throughout my academic journey and eventually led me to Stanford University, where I majored in software engineering. College was transformative. Between coding marathons and entrepreneurship seminars, I found my passion at the intersection of technology and healthcare. The American healthcare system had always frustrated me with its inefficiencies and lack of accessibility. During my junior year, I witnessed my grandmother struggle to coordinate between various specialists for her chronic condition. The fragmented communication between providers resulted in medication conflicts that could have been avoided with better coordination. This experience planted the seed for what would eventually become HealthConnect. I graduated with honors in 2015 and immediately began working on my vision. Rather than accepting lucrative offers from tech giants in Silicon Valley, I decided to forge my own path. With unwavering determination and my savings from summer internships, I founded HealthConnect alongside two trusted classmates, Brian Thompson, a brilliant back-end developer who became our chief technology officer, and Stephanie Reed, a charismatic marketing major, who took on the role of chief marketing officer. Our mission was clear: create a digital platform that would seamlessly connect patients with healthcare services, enabling better coordination, simplified scheduling, and improved health outcomes. We envisioned a world where patients could manage all aspects of their healthcare journey through a single user-friendly interface. The first 3 years were incredibly challenging. We worked from my tiny apartment in Palo Alto, converting the living room into our office space. None of us took salaries, subsisting on ramen noodles and coffee, while pouring every ounce of energy into building our minimum viable product. Weekends disappeared. Relationships strained and doubt crept in during our lowest moments. We applied to dozens of accelerator programs and pitched to countless angel investors, only to face rejection after rejection. Our families and close friends believed in us enough to invest $50,000 collectively, which kept the lights on while we refined our product. Each night I would stay up questioning whether we were on the right path or merely chasing an impossible dream. Brian and Stephanie showed similar dedication, often sleeping on my couch rather than wasting time commuting home during intense development sprints. The breakthrough came in late 2018 when we finally secured a meeting with Westwood Capital, a seed-stage investment firm known for backing healthcare innovations. After a nerve-wracking pitch where I nearly spilled water on the lead investor, they saw potential in our solution and offered us $500,000 in funding at a $3 million valuation. That investment changed everything. We moved into a proper office space, hired our first employees, and accelerated product development. Over the next 18 months, we refined our platform based on user feedback and expanded our features. The healthcare providers appreciated our intuitive interface for managing patient appointments, while patients loved the simplified access to their medical records and care coordination. Our user base grew steadily to 50,000 within 18 months. Local clinics and individual practitioners began recommending HealthConnect to their patients, creating organic growth through word of mouth. We implemented a freemium business model offering basic services for free while charging for premium features and integration with electronic health record systems. With promising traction and positive user feedback, we felt ready to raise additional capital to scale our operations. After months of meetings and due diligence, TechVision Ventures, the venture capital arm of TechVision Corporation, offered to lead our series around with $3 million at a $15 million valuation. Several smaller investors joined the round, bringing the total to $4.5 million. The day we closed that funding round remains one of my fondest memories. Brian, Stephanie, and I toasted with champagne in our office, surrounded by our growing team of 12 employees who shared our vision. The future seemed limitless. We had validation from reputable investors, a product that users loved, and capital to execute our expansion plans. Little did I know that within this seemingly standard investment contract lay the seeds of both my greatest professional challenge and unexpected financial windfall. Our lawyers had negotiated several founder-friendly terms, including specific clauses regarding stock vesting schedules and acceleration provisions in case of acquisition, IPO, or certain adverse actions against founding team members. At the time, these legal details seemed like standard boilerplate language that would likely never come into play. I skimmed over them during our signing, focusing instead on the exciting growth opportunities ahead. We were primarily concerned with building product features, expanding our user base, and delivering on the promises we had made to our investors. The capital infusion allowed us to hire specialists in healthcare compliance, additional engineers, and a dedicated customer success team. We expanded our office space and invested in proper equipment. For the first time, we paid ourselves reasonable salaries, though still well below market rates, to preserve runway. The validation from TechVision Ventures also opened doors to partnerships with larger healthcare networks and insurance providers who previously hesitated to work with an unproven startup. Our product roadmap extended 2 years into the future with ambitious features that would solidify our position as an innovative force in healthcare technology. We planned integrations with wearable devices for real-time health monitoring, AI-powered symptom checking, and secure telehealth consultations. The entire team buzzed with excitement about creating something truly transformative. As part of the investment terms, TechVision would appoint a representative to our board of directors to oversee their investment and provide strategic guidance. We welcomed this arrangement, anticipating valuable insights from an experienced corporate partner who could help navigate our growth journey. 2 weeks after finalizing our Series A round, we received notification that Marcus Johnson would represent TechVision on our board. His professional profile impressed us initially: Harvard Business School graduate, former management consultant, and successful exits from previous startup investments. The TechVision partners spoke highly of his strategic vision and operational expertise. Our first meeting with Marcus took place in our headquarters. He arrived 15 minutes early, dressed impeccably in a tailored navy suit that contrasted sharply with our casual startup attire. Standing at 6 feet 2 inches with perfectly styled salt and pepper hair, Marcus carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to commanding rooms. His firm handshake and direct eye contact conveyed authority, while his precisely articulated words revealed his East Coast education. During that initial meeting, Marcus appeared supportive and enthusiastic about HealthConnect. He complimented our user interface, praised our growth metrics, and shared anecdotes about successful healthcare startups he had previously advised. He asked thoughtful questions about our customer acquisition strategy and technical architecture, taking detailed notes in a leather-bound notebook. "I am here to help you succeed," Marcus assured us with a practiced smile. "TechVision believes in your vision and wants to provide whatever resources you need to scale effectively." The first few board meetings proceeded smoothly. Marcus contributed valuable suggestions about refining our financial projections and introduced us to potential enterprise clients from his extensive network. Stephanie particularly appreciated his marketing insights, while Brian found his technical feedback reasonable if somewhat conventional. About 3 months into our partnership, subtle warning signs began to emerge. During a product strategy session, I presented our 6-month development roadmap, focusing on expanding patient engagement features based on user research. Marcus interrupted, frequently questioning our prioritization decisions without fully understanding the user needs we were addressing. "These wellness tracking features seem unnecessary," he commented dismissively. "Your core scheduling functionality is what drives revenue. Everything else is a distraction." I explained that our research indicated users valued the holistic health approach and that engagement with these features correlated with higher retention rates. Marcus nodded but continued pressing his point, suggesting we should focus exclusively on features that directly generated revenue in the short term. This pattern continued in subsequent meetings. Marcus would arrive with pre-formed opinions about our strategy, often contradicting decisions we had carefully made based on market research and user feedback. He began using phrases like, from my experience and what typically works, to override our insights about our own product and users. Particularly concerning was how Marcus started manipulating meeting dynamics. He would schedule pre-meetings with individual team members, extracting information he would later use to undermine my positions. During official discussions, he would interrupt me mid-sentence or redirect conversations when my points gained traction. If I presented data supporting my recommendation, he would question the methodology or dismiss it as not representative. Our fundamental vision differences became increasingly apparent. I believed in building a comprehensive platform that would transform healthcare experiences, even if that meant slower revenue growth initially. Marcus focused solely on quarterly metrics that would impress other investors pushing for aggressive monetization regardless of long-term implications for user satisfaction. 6 months after Marcus joined our board, we held a pivotal meeting about the next year's product development plan. I had prepared an extensive presentation detailing feature expansions based on user feedback, competitive analysis, and market trends. 20 minutes into my presentation, Marcus stopped me. "This approach is too conservative," he declared. "We need to pursue aggressive growth. Your plan might work for a lifestyle business, but TechVision invested expecting venture-scale returns." His comment stung, implying we lacked ambition or business acumen. I defended our strategy, explaining that sustainable growth based on user satisfaction would yield better long-term outcomes than rushing features for short-term metrics. The meeting ended with unresolved tension, and I noticed several team members glancing uncomfortably between Marcus and me. Following this confrontation, Marcus began communicating directly with Brian and Stephanie, circumventing me on important decisions. He scheduled private lunches with them, discussing strategic matters that should have involved the entire founding team. Initially, they shared these conversations with me, uncomfortable with the dynamic Marcus was creating. "He asked a lot of questions about your management style," Brian confided after one such lunch. "It felt like he was fishing for criticisms." Stephanie reported similar experiences. Marcus suggested that our marketing strategy should report directly to the board rather than through you. When I pushed back, he implied this could affect my career trajectory at HealthConnect. These divide-and-conquer tactics created a subtle undercurrent of tension within our previously united founding team. I began noticing slight hesitations when I made decisions, wondering if Marcus had already influenced my colleagues' perspectives behind the scenes. My anxiety grew as I sensed my position becoming increasingly precarious. Late at night, I would review our investor agreements, trying to understand the power dynamics at play. The company that had been my passion project for years now felt like shifting ground beneath my feet. Still, I remained determined to protect our original vision. During our next board meeting, I presented comprehensive user satisfaction data showing our approach was working. Customer retention rates exceeded industry standards, and our Net Promoter Score ranked in the top percentile for healthcare applications. Marcus listened with an impassive expression, typing notes on his laptop without making eye contact. After the meeting, he requested a private conversation in our small conference room. "Chelsea, you have built something promising here." He began with a tone that immediately put me on edge. "But scaling a company requires different skills than founding one. Have you considered what role might best leverage your strengths as we grow?" The implication was clear. He was questioning my capability to lead HealthConnect through its next growth phase. Despite the knot forming in my stomach, I maintained composure and firmly stated my intention to continue guiding the company according to our founding principles. Marcus nodded noncommittally before checking his watch and excusing himself for another appointment. That evening, I called my mentor from Stanford's entrepreneurship program, Professor Richardson, seeking advice about navigating this increasingly challenging situation. His response was sobering. "Corporate investors often have different time frames and priorities than founders," he explained. "They measure success quarterly while you're building for the long term. Document everything, know your legal rights, and prepare for difficult decisions ahead." His words proved prophetic as Marcus's interference accelerated in the coming weeks. What had begun as strategic disagreements was evolving into a subtle but unmistakable power struggle that threatened everything we had built. The tension between Marcus and me escalated when he began demanding detailed weekly reports on my activities and decisions. These reports were not required from other executives, including my co-founders. Each Monday morning, I received emails requesting exhaustive documentation of customer interactions, product decisions, and team management. "The board needs visibility into your decision-making process," Marcus explained, when I questioned this micromanagement. As the largest investor, TechVision deserves comprehensive oversight. These reports consumed hours of my time each week, hours that should have been spent on product development and team leadership. I often worked until midnight, completing them only to receive nitpicking feedback, questioning minute decisions. The constant scrutiny affected my sleep, my stress levels, and ultimately my effectiveness as a leader. Our once cohesive team began fracturing under the pressure. Some employees remained loyal to our original vision and my leadership, while others gravitated toward Marcus's promise of aggressive growth and lucrative exits. Lunch groups became segregated, and meeting dynamics shifted as people carefully positioned their comments to align with either perspective. The most painful development was Stephanie's gradual shift toward Marcus's camp. Initially, she had seemed as disturbed as I was by his interference, but their private meetings became more frequent. Marcus flattered her marketing expertise and began suggesting that she deserved a larger role in company leadership. Marcus thinks we should double our marketing budget next quarter, she mentioned casually during one of our founder meetings. He believes my department should have more autonomy in strategic decisions. When I expressed concern about diverting resources from product development, Stephanie appeared defensive. He says our current allocation reflects outdated priorities. TechVision has launched dozens of successful companies, Chelsea. Maybe we should trust their expertise. The implication that I was stubbornly ignoring valuable guidance hurt deeply. Stephanie and I had been friends since college, weathering countless challenges together as we built HealthConnect from nothing. Her gradual alignment with Marcus felt like a personal betrayal beyond our professional disagreement. Brian maintained his loyalty but found himself in an increasingly uncomfortable position. As CTO, he needed to balance technical priorities against the conflicting directives coming from Marcus and me. I often found him mediating between us, trying to find compromises that would satisfy both visions. I don't think Marcus understands our technical architecture well enough to be making these recommendations, Brian confided after a particularly tense meeting. But he's convinced the board that his approach is correct and we can't simply ignore our investors. The situation reached a breaking point during our quarterly strategy meeting. Marcus presented a proposal to completely pivot our business model, transforming HealthConnect from a patient-centered platform into an analytics tool selling aggregated health data to insurance companies and pharmaceutical manufacturers. The real monetization opportunity is in the data, Marcus declared confidently. Direct-to-consumer healthcare apps have limited revenue potential, but the market for healthcare analytics is projected to reach $20 billion by next year. I was horrified. This approach contradicted our entire founding mission of empowering patients and improving care coordination. Moreover, it raised serious ethical concerns about user privacy and consent. With thorough preparation, I presented market research, user testimonials, and revenue projections demonstrating the viability of our current model. Our users trust us with their most sensitive information because we promise to use it to improve their healthcare experience, not to sell it to the highest bidder, I argued passionately. This pivot would violate that trust and likely trigger significant regulatory scrutiny under HIPAA and other privacy regulations. Several board members appeared, persuaded by my arguments, nodding thoughtfully as I outlined the risks involved in Marcus's proposal. The meeting ended without a formal decision, but I felt cautiously optimistic that I had successfully defended our original vision. My optimism evaporated the following week when I discovered Marcus had organized a separate board meeting without inviting me. One sympathetic board member, Patricia Wilson, called to inform me of this secret session where Marcus had presented a significantly revised version of his proposal, addressing the concerns I had raised, but maintaining the fundamental pivot toward data monetization. He implied you were resistant to innovation and overly idealistic, Patricia explained apologetically. He suggested your emotional attachment to the original concept was clouding your business judgment. This deliberate undermining of my leadership crossed a line. When confronted, Marcus appeared unfazed, suggesting that as board chairman he had the authority to convene meetings as he deemed necessary. The power dynamics had shifted dramatically since our Series A funding, with Marcus gradually consolidating influence among board members and senior staff. The final blow came when I discovered Stephanie had been sharing confidential information with Marcus, including internal team feedback and preliminary discussions about potential strategic changes before I had finalized them. This discovery occurred accidentally when an email thread was forwarded to me that contained their prior exchanges. The messages revealed Stephanie had been expressing frustrations about my leadership for months, often misconstruing situations to paint me as indecisive or overly cautious. Marcus had encouraged these perspectives, responding with sympathy and suggestions about how TechVision might reorganize leadership to better leverage everyone's strengths. Confronting Stephanie was one of the most difficult conversations of my professional life. In our small conference room away from curious eyes, I presented the email evidence without accusation, simply asking for an explanation. "Marcus understands corporate growth better than we do," she responded defensively. "He thinks you are holding HealthConnect back, and honestly, Chelsea, sometimes I agree. We could have scaled much faster with a more aggressive approach. So you decided to undermine me. Instead of having this conversation directly," I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Stephanie looked away. "Marcus assures me that after the restructuring, my role would expand significantly. He believes I have the potential to lead our go-to-market strategy independently." The naked ambition behind her betrayal stunned me. 3 years of friendship and shared struggle erased by promises of advancement. I left that conversation feeling profoundly alone in the company I had founded. That evening, I began methodically reviewing all legal documents related to our TechVision investment. Despite my emotional turmoil, I recognized that knowledge would be my most powerful defense against whatever Marcus was planning. Among the dense contractual language of our Series A agreement, I discovered a potentially crucial provision regarding full acceleration of founder equity in cases of adverse action. The clause stated that if founding team members were terminated without proper cause or experienced substantial reduction in responsibilities constituting constructive dismissal, all unvested equity would immediately vest in full. This acceleration provision had been included to protect founders from being forced out immediately after investment, only to lose their ownership stake due to standard 4-year vesting schedules. I contacted our original attorney who had negotiated the agreement to understand the full implications. "This is a founder-friendly provision that most VCs resist, including," he explained. "If they terminate you improperly, your entire equity grant accelerates immediately, regardless of the normal vesting schedule." With my ownership currently worth approximately $9.4 million based on our last valuation, this clause represented significant financial protection. However, I still hope to resolve the situation without triggering this nuclear option. HealthConnect was more than an investment to me. It represented years of dedication to improving healthcare access for patients nationwide. As Marcus's behavior grew increasingly hostile, I began preparing for worst-case scenarios while still working diligently to advance our original mission. The company I had built with passion and conviction was slipping through my fingers, but I refused to surrender without ensuring proper protection for both myself and our users. The situation deteriorated further when I accidentally overheard a conversation between Marcus and Jessica Parker, TechVision's legal counsel. They were speaking in the small kitchen area, unaware that I was in the adjacent supply room gathering materials for an upcoming presentation. "We need to establish a pattern of performance issues before proceeding with termination," Jessica advised in a low voice. "The employment agreement has specific provisions that could be costly if we don't document properly." Marcus sounded frustrated. "She is actively hindering company growth with her outdated vision. Every week we delay costs us market opportunity." "I understand your urgency," Jessica replied patiently, "but rushing this could trigger the acceleration clause. We need at least 3 documented performance reviews highlighting specific deficiencies, preferably with improvement plans she fails to meet." Their voices faded as they walked toward the elevator, but I had heard enough. The conversation confirmed my suspicions. Marcus was methodically building a case to fire me while attempting to circumvent the protective clauses in my contract. That evening, I reached out to Michael Donovan, an independent attorney specializing in startup law and venture capital disputes. Rather than using my work email or phone, I contacted him through my personal accounts and arranged to meet at a coffee shop several blocks from our office. Michael, a seasoned lawyer with salt and pepper hair and calm demeanor, listened attentively as I detailed the situation. I brought copies of relevant documents, my employment agreement, the Series A investment terms, board meeting minutes, and recent communications, demonstrating the shift in company direction. "Based on what you have shared, this appears to be a classic founder displacement scenario," Michael observed after reviewing the materials. "Unfortunately, it is common after Series A funding, when professional investors seek to replace visionary founders with executives they perceive as more commercially focused. What are my options? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the emotional weight of potentially losing my company. Your acceleration clause is unusually strong, Michael noted. Most VCs insist on double trigger acceleration, requiring both a change in control and termination. Your single trigger provision activating upon termination alone provides significant leverage. He explained that if Marcus proceeded with termination without legitimate cause, all my unvested shares would immediately vest, securing my equity regardless of the 4-year vesting schedule normally applicable to founder shares. Given our recent valuation, this represented approximately $9.4 million. However, Michael cautioned, they will likely try to establish cause for termination to avoid triggering this clause. We need to document everything and create our own record of your performance and contributions. Following Michael's advice, I began meticulously documenting all interactions, decisions, and accomplishments. I saved emails to personal storage, recorded meetings when legally permissible, and maintained a detailed journal of verbal conversations and directives. This documentation would be crucial in contesting any fabricated performance issues. I also backed up critical company data to ensure I retained access to evidence of my contributions and the original product vision. This included user research findings, product development timelines, and growth metrics demonstrating the success of our current approach. While gathering this evidence, I noticed Marcus intensifying pressure on my team members. He questioned their decisions in public forums, suggested their work required additional oversight, and implied their career advancement depended on embracing his vision for the company. Several loyal employees approached me privately, expressing confusion and concern about these interactions. Marcus told me my marketing analytics report should go directly to him for review before you see it, explained Rachel from our marketing team. He said it was to streamline communications, but it feels like I am being asked to bypass the normal chain of command. Similar patterns emerged across departments, Marcus inserting himself into reporting structures, redefining priorities, and gradually isolating me from information flows critical to my leadership role. This behavior constituted textbook constructive dismissal, creating working conditions so intolerable that an employee is effectively forced to resign. The situation reached a new level of tension when Stephanie publicly criticized my leadership during an all-hands meeting. While discussing quarterly objectives, she interrupted my presentation to suggest that our overly cautious approach to monetization reflects outdated thinking that jeopardizes company growth. The room fell silent as employees glanced uncomfortably between us. Rather than engaging in public confrontation, I calmly acknowledged her perspective and suggested we continue the strategic discussion in our executive meeting. After the all-hands concluded, several employees approached me privately to express support, but the damage to my authority was evident. Recognizing the accelerating timeline, I attempted to communicate directly with other investors beyond TechVision. Though they held minority stakes, these angel investors and smaller firms had supported our original vision and might provide counterbalance to Marcus's influence. However, Marcus had anticipated this move and taken steps to control investor communications. All investor relations should be coordinated through the board chairman to ensure consistent messaging. Read the email Marcus sent to all shareholders, effectively cutting off my direct communication channel. When I challenged this protocol, he cited standard governance practices and implied my attempts to contact investors independently were inappropriate. The psychological toll of these events weighed heavily on me. Sleepless nights became routine as I strategized responses to each new development. The company I had built from nothing was transforming before my eyes into something unrecognizable. Loyal employees were being manipulated or pushed aside, and our patient-centered mission was giving way to aggressive data monetization strategies. During this difficult period, I maintained regular consultations with Michael, updating him on new developments and refining our response strategy. They are building toward termination, he confirmed after reviewing recent documentation. But they are also making mistakes that strengthen our position. He pointed to several actions that clearly demonstrated bad faith, excluding me from key meetings, reassigning my responsibilities without consultation, and documenting performance concerns without proper notification or opportunity to address them. These actions violated both my employment agreement and standard corporate governance practices. Continue documenting everything, Michael advised. When they make their move, we will be prepared to respond appropriately. The emotional strain of operating in this hostile environment was immense. Each morning required tremendous effort to maintain professionalism and focus on user needs despite the political machinations surrounding me. I found solace in the messages from patients who shared how HealthConnect had improved their healthcare experience, tangible reminders of why this fight mattered beyond my personal situation. As weeks passed, Marcus became increasingly bold in his maneuvers. My responsibilities were gradually reassigned, my input dismissed in strategic discussions, and my access to certain data systems mysteriously restricted. These actions clearly indicated the endgame approaching: a formalized termination attempt designed to remove me while minimizing financial consequences. They will likely offer a separation package that appears generous but requires you to forfeit equity rights, Michael predicted during our final preparation meeting. When that happens, remain calm, ask clarifying questions, and do not sign anything without review. Armed with thorough documentation, legal counsel, and clarity about my contractual protections, I awaited the inevitable confrontation. Though emotionally painful, I was prepared to defend the company vision and my own interests against Marcus's calculated takeover attempt. The morning started like many others during this tense period. I arrived early at the office, reviewed user feedback reports, and prepared for a product development meeting scheduled for 10:30. At 9:15, an email notification appeared on my screen: urgent meeting. Today, at 11, executive conference room. The message came from Marcus, copying Jessica Parker from Legal and Diane from Human Resources. The purpose was unstated, but the attendee list told me everything I needed to know. This was the termination meeting Michael had prepared me for. My heart raced as adrenaline surged through my system, but externally, I maintained composure, responding with a simple acknowledgement of the calendar invitation. The next hour and 45 minutes stretched interminably as I finalized preparations. I forwarded key documents to my personal email as backup, confirmed that Michael was available by phone immediately after the meeting, and mentally rehearsed how to respond to various scenarios. Throughout this process, I noticed curious glances from team members who had observed the calendar invitation. News traveled fast in our open office environment. Walking toward the conference room at 10:58, I felt the weight of countless eyes following my progress. Some employees offered encouraging smiles, while others quickly looked away, uncomfortable with the obvious tension. The glass-walled conference room at the end of the hallway offered no privacy for what was about to unfold, ensuring that my professional execution would have an audience. Marcus sat at the head of the table, flanked by Jessica and Diane. 3 folders lay precisely arranged before them, containing what I presumed were termination documents. Marcus wore his standard power outfit: charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, red tie, corporate armor, for difficult conversations. "Chelsea, please have a seat." Marcus gestured to the chair opposite him, his voice carrying the artificial warmth of practiced corporate diplomacy. "We have some important matters to discuss regarding your role at HealthConnect." I sat down, quietly maintaining eye contact with each person at the table. Jessica appeared slightly uncomfortable, adjusting her glasses repeatedly and shuffling papers. Diane maintained a practiced HR-neutral expression, neither friendly nor hostile. After careful consideration and numerous discussions with the board, we have determined that a leadership change is necessary for HealthConnect's continued growth. Marcus began his rehearsed speech, flowing smoothly. "While we appreciate your contributions in founding the company, the board believes different leadership skills are required for our next development phase." He proceeded to list my alleged performance failures, missed growth targets, resistance to strategic pivots, communication issues with the executive team, and failure to implement board-recommended changes. Each accusation was carefully worded to suggest incompetence rather than philosophical differences about company direction. User acquisition has fallen 15% below projections for 2 consecutive quarters. Marcus continued, referencing metrics that had been deliberately set unrealistically high during previous board meetings. "Additionally, your resistance to our data monetization strategy has delayed critical revenue diversification." I remained silent, allowing him to complete his prepared statement. Interrupting would only provide ammunition for claims about my supposedly difficult communication style. Instead, I maintained neutral eye contact, occasionally nodding to acknowledge I was listening without indicating agreement. After outlining my purported failures, Marcus transitioned to termination terms. "We are prepared to offer a separation package that includes 3 months' salary and healthcare continuation," he stated, sliding a document toward me. In exchange, we request standard non-disparagement confidentiality and release of claims. His tone became noticeably smug as he added, "As you know, your equity is subject to a 4-year vesting schedule with a 1-year cliff. Given your termination for performance reasons constitutes cause, under our definitions, unvested shares will be returned to the company option pool." Then came the statement that would shortly prove monumentally miscalculated. "This adverse action ensures you leave with nothing beyond the basic separation package. The board feels this is generous given the circumstances." Throughout his monologue, I had been carefully observing Jessica's reactions. As an experienced corporate attorney, she seemed increasingly uneasy, particularly when Marcus mentioned cause and adverse action in such explicit terms. Her discomfort suggested she might not have fully reviewed the specific language being used, or perhaps had advised a different approach. When Marcus finally finished speaking, I maintained my composed demeanor and asked a single question. "Have you reviewed the full acceleration clause in Section 8.3 of the Series A investment agreement, particularly as it relates to adverse actions against founding team members?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Marcus's expression flickered momentarily before he turned to Jessica with raised eyebrows. "That provision was addressed in our preparation, correct?" Jessica hesitated, flipping rapidly through her folder. "We discussed standard vesting provisions, but I need to verify the specific language regarding acceleration in the Series A documents." As this exchange unfolded, a notification sound drew everyone's attention to Marcus's phone on the table. The screen illuminated with an automated alert from his banking app. The message visible to everyone present indicated a wire transfer had been initiated, $9,400,000, HealthConnect equity compensation, status processing. Marcus stared at the notification in confusion. His left eye began twitching noticeably as the implications dawned on him. He turned to Jessica, his carefully constructed facade crumbling. "What does full acceleration mean exactly?" he demanded, voice rising slightly. Jessica, now visibly uncomfortable, cleared her throat before responding. "Full acceleration means that upon certain triggering events, all unvested equity immediately vests in full. If this provision was activated, Chelsea would immediately receive full ownership of all promised shares, regardless of the normal vesting schedule." "And what would constitute a triggering event?" Marcus pressed his eye, twitch becoming more pronounced. "Typically, termination without cause would be a standard trigger," Jessica explained reluctantly. "Our Series A documents appear to have an unusually founder-friendly provision where any adverse action against founding team members triggers immediate vesting." She continued with growing discomfort. "Using specific language like adverse action in this termination meeting may have automatically triggered the clause per the contractual terms. The system would process this as a predetermined response to the documented action." Marcus's face paled visibly as he processed this information. The $9.4 million transfer represented the current value of my entire equity grant based on our most recent valuation round capital that should have gradually vested over 4 years but was now being released all at once, due to his poorly executed termination attempt. "Can we stop the transfer?" Marcus demanded, voice now openly panicked. Jessica shook her head slowly. The acceleration clause was structured as an automated smart contract tied to specific triggering language and authorized corporate actions. Once initiated, it executes automatically through the cap table management system. This appears to be functioning as designed to protect founders from exactly this type of situation. The irony was palpable. The very words Marcus had chosen to intimidate me, adverse action, and ensuring I leave with nothing, had triggered the protective mechanism designed to prevent precisely such outcomes. His attempt to strip me of earned equity had backfired spectacularly, resulting in immediate vesting of the entire amount. Marcus abruptly stood up, instructing Jessica to fix this immediately before storming out of the conference room, leaving his termination documents behind. Through the glass walls, employees pretended not to watch as he marched toward his office, face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Diane, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, awkwardly gathered her materials. "Perhaps we should reschedule this discussion," she suggested diplomatically before following Marcus. Left alone with Jessica, I maintained my professional composure, despite the emotional turmoil beneath the surface. "I believe our business is concluded for today," I stated calmly. "I'll have my attorney review any additional communication regarding my employment status." As I walked out of the conference room, the weight of what had just transpired hit me fully. Years of work building HealthConnect had culminated in this bizarre confrontation. While the financial outcome provided security, the emotional reality of being forced from my own company remained painful. The curious and sympathetic glances from my team members as I collected my personal items only intensified these complex feelings. Before leaving the office, I sent a brief factual email to the entire team. Today marks a transition in my journey with HealthConnect. While I cannot share all details at this time, please know that creating this company with all of you has been the highlight of my professional life. I remain committed to our mission of improving healthcare experiences, though my role will be changing. As the elevator doors closed behind me, carrying me away from the company I had built from nothing, I experienced a swirl of contradictory emotions: vindication at the backfiring of Marcus's scheme, grief at losing daily connection with the product and team I loved, and uncertainty about what would come next. The hours following my departure from HealthConnect headquarters passed in a blur. I drove to a nearby park and sat on a bench, simultaneously processing the morning's events and fielding urgent calls. Michael contacted me first, confirming that the equity acceleration had indeed processed successfully. The funds were in escrow pending standard financial verification, but would transfer to my account within 3 business days. This is a textbook example of why founder protections matter, Michael noted with professional satisfaction. They attempted to execute a standard founder displacement without proper review of the contractual terms. A costly oversight. I felt oddly detached from the financial implications. $9.4 million represented life-changing security, yet it felt hollow compared to the loss of daily involvement with the company I had built from concept to reality. My thoughts were interrupted by another call, this time from Marcus himself. "We need to discuss what happened this morning," he began without preamble, his voice tightly controlled. "There appears to have been a misunderstanding regarding certain contractual provisions. I believe our attorneys should handle any further communication," I replied evenly. "Chelsea, be reasonable." Marcus's tone shifted to persuasive. This technical triggering of the acceleration clause was clearly not the board's intention. "We can work together to find an appropriate resolution that satisfies all parties." His transparent attempt to reverse the financial consequences of his own actions might have been amusing under different circumstances. I simply reiterated that all communication should proceed through proper legal channels and ended the call. Within hours, TechVision assembled an emergency board meeting to address what they were internally calling the acceleration incident. Through Patricia, my ally on the board, I learned that Marcus faced intense criticism from TechVision's managing partners for failing to properly review the contractual terms before proceeding with termination. "They're in damage control mode," Patricia reported. "The acceleration payment exceeds their allocated risk threshold for founder settlements by several $1,000,000. Marcus is trying to claim he received inadequate legal counsel from Jessica." By evening, my phone lit up with an unexpected caller, Alexander Griffin, TechVision's chief executive officer. Unlike Marcus's aggressive approach, Alexander adopted a conciliatory tone. "This situation has been handled poorly from our side," he acknowledged, without directly admitting wrongdoing. Marcus's approach did not reflect TechVision's standard practices for managing leadership transitions. Though carefully worded to avoid legal liability, his implicit acknowledgement of Marcus's mishandling offered some validation. Alexander proposed a meeting to discuss mutually beneficial arrangements moving forward. Despite my instinct to refuse further engagement, Michael advised that hearing their proposal could provide leverage for negotiating favorable terms regarding my future relationship with HealthConnect. The following morning, I met Alexander and TechVision's chief counsel at a neutral location, a private conference room at my attorney's office building. Alexander, a veteran venture capitalist with 20 years of experience, presented a stark contrast to Marcus's bombastic style. His measured speech and thoughtful pauses suggested someone accustomed to resolving complex situations. "We respect the contractual provisions that led to your equity acceleration," Alexander began pragmatically. "What happened yesterday cannot be undone. However, we believe there are arrangements that could benefit both parties going forward." Their proposal included several elements. I would retain the accelerated equity payment in full, sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement regarding the circumstances of my departure except a 3-year non-compete clause in the healthcare technology sector, and agree to a carefully worded public statement describing my departure as a mutual decision to pursue other opportunities. This arrangement provides you with financial security while allowing HealthConnect to transition smoothly under new leadership, Alexander explained. We believe this represents a fair resolution given the circumstances. Michael and I caucused privately to evaluate the offer. The financial terms were favorable. I would keep the full acceleration payment, but the non-compete clause would prevent me from working in my area of expertise for 3 years. After careful consideration, we countered with modified terms, a 1-year non-compete, limited specifically to direct competitors of HealthConnect's current product offerings, reasonable consulting availability for transition, questions and joint approval rights on any public statements regarding my departure. After several hours of negotiation, we reached agreement on final terms. The documents were signed that afternoon, officially ending my formal relationship with the company I had founded. The settlement provided financial security but did little to address the emotional impact of being forced from my creation. That evening, I received a text message from Stephanie, "Can we talk, please?" Her sudden outreach after weeks of alignment with Marcus sparked conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to ignore the message entirely, but curiosity about her perspective won out. We met at a quiet cafe the following day. Stephanie appeared visibly distressed with dark circles under her eyes, suggesting sleepless nights. "I never thought it would go this far," she began, voice unsteady. "Marcus promised restructuring that would benefit everyone, not your complete removal." Her explanation unfolded gradually. Marcus had cultivated her ambition with promises of expanded authority and eventual leadership opportunities. He had framed his intervention as necessary corporate maturation rather than a personal campaign against me. By the time she recognized the true nature of his intentions, she felt too compromised to change course. "I betrayed our friendship for professional advancement," she admitted. "When I saw you leave yesterday with your personal items, the reality of what I had participated in hit me fully. I am so sorry, Chelsea." Her apology seemed genuine but did little to repair the broken trust between us. I acknowledged her regret, without offering easy forgiveness, making it clear that rebuilding our relationship would require time and demonstrated change if it was possible at all. Brian contacted me the following day, expressing unequivocal support and sharing insights about the chaotic aftermath at HealthConnect. "The office is in complete disarray," he reported. "Marcus is frantically trying to establish control while deflecting blame for the acceleration payout. Several team members have already updated their resumes." He described how Marcus had called an all-hands meeting attempting to normalize the transition, but the obvious tension and rushed explanations had only increased employee anxiety. "He keeps saying everything is proceeding according to plan, but nobody believes him. Your departure and the rumors about a massive payout have completely undermined his authority." Despite the professional validation these reports provided, I felt surprisingly empty. The vindication of Marcus's scheme backfiring brought less satisfaction than I had anticipated. Instead, I found myself mourning the community we had built and the vision that would likely be compromised under new leadership. The weeks following my departure brought a steady stream of news about HealthConnect. Marcus was quietly removed from his position as board representative and reassigned to another division within TechVision, a face-saving demotion that acknowledged his mishandling without public admission. Jessica, the legal counsel whose oversight had contributed to the acceleration trigger, was replaced by a more experienced attorney specializing in founder agreements. Industry publications covered my departure with the carefully worded statement we had negotiated, but insider blogs speculated about the true circumstances, with some correctly guessing that a significant equity acceleration had occurred. These stories typically framed the outcome as a cautionary tale about the importance of proper legal review before attempting founder displacement. Several companies reached out with consulting opportunities, attracted by both my healthcare technology expertise and the implied savvy of someone who had successfully protected their interests against corporate maneuvering. While financially attractive, these offers held little appeal compared to the purpose-driven work of building HealthConnect. During this period of professional limbo, I found myself unexpectedly directionless after years of singular focus. The financial security provided by the acceleration payment eliminated immediate pressure to work, creating space for reflection about what truly mattered to me beyond the startup I had lost. The first 6 months after leaving HealthConnect became a period of healing and rediscovery. Initially, I struggled with the abrupt transition from working 16-hour days to having no professional obligations whatsoever. The sudden abundance of unstructured time felt more disorienting than liberating. For the first month, I barely left my apartment, cycling through emotions from anger to grief to occasional relief. The company I had poured my heart and soul into for years continued operating without me, its direction increasingly diverging from my original vision. Financial security provided little comfort against this sense of loss and purposelessness. Recognizing the unhealthy pattern developing, I made a conscious decision to approach healing methodically. I began with physical recovery, addressing the neglected health consequences of startup life. Irregular sleep patterns, stress-induced eating habits, and non-existent exercise routines. Morning runs became meditative rituals, where I processed emotions while rebuilding physical strength. Travel provided another avenue for perspective. I visited places long on my wish list, but perpetually deferred due to startup demands, hiking through Patagonia, exploring architectural wonders in Japan, and volunteering at community healthcare initiatives in rural communities. These experiences reconnected me with the broader world beyond technology and business metrics. Professional reflection came through selective educational opportunities. I enrolled in courses on healthcare policy and emerging medical technologies, deepening my understanding of the ecosystem I hope to impact. These studies reinforced my conviction that patient-centered innovation remained critically needed despite my personal setback. The most profound healing occurred through contemplative practices. Daily journaling helped process lingering resentment toward Marcus and Stephanie, while meditation cultivated acceptance of circumstances beyond my control. Gradually, I recognized that defining myself entirely through professional achievements had created an unsustainable identity vulnerable to external validation. As emotional wounds began healing, I considered how to meaningfully deploy the financial resources from my unexpected windfall. While personal financial security was important, I felt responsible to create positive impact with funds that ultimately came from investors who believed in improving healthcare. This reflection led to my first significant post-HealthConnect initiative, establishing a dedicated investment fund supporting female-founded healthcare technology startups. Having experienced firsthand the additional challenges women entrepreneurs face in male-dominated venture environments, I committed $2 million to providing both capital and mentorship to promising founders with limited access to traditional funding channels. Resilience Ventures launched with a simple mission statement: supporting diverse founders building patient-centered healthcare innovations. Beyond financial returns, we evaluated potential investments based on meaningful impact metrics and ethical data practices. This approach attracted partners with similar values, eventually growing our fund to $12 million through additional limited partners. Through this work, I reconnected with Brian, who had departed HealthConnect 6 months after my termination. "The company culture completely transformed after you left," he explained during our first meeting. Product decisions became entirely metrics-driven without consideration for patient experience or long-term outcomes. Brian described how Marcus's replacement, a former pharmaceutical executive, had indeed pivoted the company toward data monetization despite user privacy concerns. Several original team members had resigned in protest, unwilling to participate in what they viewed as betrayal of user trust. Brian himself had left after refusing to implement changes that would surreptitiously collect additional user data. They achieved the short-term revenue growth Marcus wanted, Brian noted, but user retention plummeted when people realized their health data was being packaged and sold. The community trust you built evaporated within quarters. 2 years after my departure, HealthConnect's trajectory confirmed these observations. User growth stalled as competitors with stronger privacy commitments gained market share. TechVision finally sold the company to a healthcare data aggregator for $32 million, substantially less than projected in earlier valuations and barely above the capital invested. The acquisition announcement notably omitted any mention of patient outcomes or care coordination, focusing exclusively on valuable healthcare consumer insights and actionable analytics. This outcome provided no satisfaction. While Marcus's strategy had ultimately failed, the real victims were patients who lost a potentially transformative healthcare tool and dedicated employees who watched their mission-driven work reduced to data extraction. The vindication of my business judgment came at too high a cost to celebrate. During this period of professional reinvention, I unexpectedly reconnected with Stephanie, at a healthcare innovation conference. Our initial interaction was awkward, weighted by unresolved history. However, over coffee after the event, she shared her journey since HealthConnect with genuine vulnerability. "After you left, I quickly realized Marcus had manipulated my ambition," she admitted. "The expanded role he promised never materialized. Instead, I found myself implementing marketing strategies that felt increasingly unethical, promoting features that harvested user data while obscuring that purpose." Stephanie had eventually resigned, spending months rebuilding her professional identity and confronting the personal weaknesses that had made her susceptible to manipulation. She had since founded a small consultancy, helping healthcare organizations communicate transparently with patients, work that directly countered her actions at HealthConnect. "I cannot undo my betrayal," she acknowledged, "but I am trying to ensure I never compromise my values for advancement again." Her authentic accountability created space for cautious reconciliation. While our friendship would never fully recover its former closeness, we eventually collaborated on a small project developing transparent data practices guidelines for healthcare startups. This collaboration allowed professional respect to replace lingering resentment. 3 years after my HealthConnect departure, these varied experiences coalesced into a new venture, combining lessons learned through both success and failure. Together with Brian and 2 healthcare practitioners, frustrated by existing technology solutions, I founded Patient First Technologies with a mission to develop genuinely user-centered healthcare coordination tools with uncompromising privacy protections. From inception, we structured the company differently from HealthConnect. Our corporate bylaws incorporated specific ethical commitments regarding data usage, employee treatment, and stakeholder governance. We raised initial capital from impact investors aligned with our patient-centered philosophy, explicitly rejecting potential partners whose values prioritized extraction over service. When designing our leadership approach, I deliberately incorporated lessons from the Marcus experience. We established distributed decision-making processes where strategy emerged from frontline insights rather than top-down declarations. Our board included patient advocates alongside investors, ensuring user needs maintained equal standing with financial considerations in governance discussions. Most importantly, I approached this new venture with a fundamentally different relationship to my professional identity. While still passionate about our mission, I maintained balanced perspective about the company's role in my overall life. Regular disconnection from work, nurturing relationships outside professional contexts, and maintaining contemplative practices all supported sustainable leadership rather than the all-consuming founder identity that had made losing HealthConnect so devastating. The profound lesson from my HealthConnect journey transcended the contractual clause that protected my financial interests. I discovered that true security comes not from legal provisions or monetary cushions, but from building organizations with integrity and maintaining identity beyond professional achievements. The $9.4 million provided important freedom, but far more valuable was the clarity about leadership values. I learned that creating environments where people feel valued ethics remain non-negotiable, and mission drives decisions ultimately produces more sustainable success than aggressive growth at any cost. Today, as Patient First Technologies serves over 100,000 users, with steadily growing impact, I measure success differently than during my HealthConnect days. Beyond user metrics and revenue growth, we track meaningful health outcomes, team well-being, and community trust measures that reflect the balanced perspective born from both triumph and loss in my entrepreneurial journey. The experience with Marcus and TechVision taught me that sometimes the best revenge isn't the money but building something better than what broke you. Creating organizational cultures where manipulation and power plays find no fertile ground represents the most meaningful response to toxic leadership experiences. Have you ever experienced someone underestimating you only to have it backfire spectacularly? Share your story in the comments below. And if this corporate justice tale resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might need a reminder that protecting yourself legally is always worth the effort. Remember, sometimes the most powerful clause in any contract is the one nobody expects you to understand. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you always read the fine print before signing anything.